You're listening to Season 2 of Conversations with Kathy, the podcast for women who are looking for a place filled with honest conversations, tangible takeaways, and new perspectives on life, love, and everything in between. And I'm your host, Kathy-Ann Roach. Let's jump right in. Debbie-Ann Jollie has coined the term the Stammering Communicator as a way to showcase her brand. And as she says, for most, my intentional use of this phrase is certainly an oxymoron. Yes, Debbie stutters, but she has refused to allow a speech impediment to define who she is and what she has to offer. The young woman who sometimes felt unseen or sometimes felt intimidated by the spotlight has gone on to be the owner of a marketing firm and is a lecturer. Debbie says, I am here to demystify the idea that people who stammer or stutter cannot be good at speaking or communicating. Come listen as she shares her story. So Debbie, I think that we are a good example of long distance relationships working because we have been friends for quite a while online.
Very much so.
Yes. And we have yet to meet, but it is so good to have you as a guest on the podcast today.
I am so thankful. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a part of season 2.
Yes. So Debbie, let's jump right in because I know part of your story is the fact that you stutter. I've come to realize that everybody has some sort of speech something.
Yeah. Especially in the Caribbean. But
for some, it becomes a hindrance. And you have kind of broken that entire mold around it. So tell me a story.
Wow. Where do you want me to begin?
From the very beginning.
I think I knew I stuttered or I knew I was different immediately when I started to interact with other children. Mm-hmm. So that would have been for me, I would say around 4, going to preschool and then realizing that you're getting teased, you're staying very long to say something, you're getting excited. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm getting excited and I can't say exactly what I want to say. And then kids are either they're mocking you or they're trying to finish your sentence, which happens right up until adulthood.
Yes.
Because people sometimes as well don't know exactly how to interact or how to cope with you as well. So I noticed that from as little as 4 or 5. And of course, when you're that age, you really want to fit in. You don't want to be different.
Yeah.
So, and I think for a lot of persons who stutter, it causes you to retreat even more because you don't want the negative attention. I didn't want the negative attention. I overthought a lot of things. I didn't make eye contact with teachers in class because I didn't want to get called on. Yeah. So I think for people, what they don't realize is that a person who stutters has, I don't know, their brain is just thinking far more than I think the average person. Yeah. And they are more conscious and aware of the emotions and of what is going on around them simply because they just have to overthink. Your speech is something to me. A lot of people take for granted the gifts they have or the abilities they have until they lose it. So it's like your sight. Yes. You take it for granted until you just don't have it. Mm-hmm. So your speech is the same way. I mean, I have to communicate with my family, with my colleagues, at times in school. Yeah. And every time you have to open up your mouth to speak, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of overthinking, there's a lot of trepidation. And that has stayed with me to adulthood, that I am a person that will naturally overthink a situation.
And it's hard growing up with something like this because I don't think people, like you said, understand. And sometimes people can be cruel. I remember my son was at a school event. So there was this Christmas play and they all had to go up and say something, right? And we were in this big hall with all of the parents and all of the kids. And he walked up on the stage and he had one line and he stuck on the word Christmas.
Oh.
And he was like on, and everybody started to laugh. This is a 3-year-old, he was in preschool. And I looked at that and I went like, wow, how insensitive can people be? Sometimes either they don't know, they don't understand
Yes.
what's happening. You know, we can't take it for granted that everybody knows that, okay, probably this child is stuttering. I don't know what it is. So I can imagine that it was very challenging for you growing up as a child. But how
Absolutely.
did you start to cope?
Whew, I think it's tough, and I tell a lot of persons, for me, innately, my parents always said, don't worry about it. They may not have been trained professionally to be able to guide
Yes.
to guide a little girl, but they
Yes.
would always say, don't worry about it, you'll get teased. That's them, that's not you, you're very smart, you could do it.
Yeah.
And they said those things. So from very small, you know, in Trinidad, we have an expression called you have a little bit of bad mind. And I
Yes.
think I think I have that. I've always been from a little child, and my mother would say I'm always the one that I wouldn't take a no. And so I would always want to go above and beyond. I want to prove that I could do it when somebody says, nah, no, I want to do it.
Yes.
So I have always had that for as long as I can remember, and it keeps translating. Now it's more like personal development, and I try to just improve myself. But from small, I always innately knew that I don't want this to keep me back.
Yes.
And I don't want persons to judge me on it. And whatever I say I could do, I can do.
Yes.
And so that has been a theme throughout my life from small. And although I do get the negative feedback and I've tried to rely on the positive situations.
Can you recall a moment that stays with you in terms of an interaction you may have had with someone?
Oh, I have good and bad ones. I remember when one of my first jobs, when I was maybe about 21 or 22, a guy interacted with me, and he said to me in about like in the space of maybe 5 or 8 minutes, he said, you know what? I always thought that persons who stuttered had a mental disability. He actually threw out the word retarded. And so I realized, well, at first I was just like, I wanted to be dismissive.
Yes, yes.
But then I realized that there are a lot of misconceptions. And he said, I really didn't anticipate that you would be intelligent. So I had that interaction. A positive one to me that set me on a good course was actually similar to what your son had at 3. At 11 or 12, when I entered secondary school, teachers put us into plays. That was the first time that I realized that if I rehearsed and I knew what I was going to say before I said it, the stutter would be dramatically reduced.
Right.
So learning lines and having to recite it meant that I knew, and I wasn't anxious. And the doing plays, which again does both, it creates the anxiety because you're in front of persons and you will naturally want to stutter. But the mere fact that I am learning lines and I know what I'm going to say before I say it actually helped me realize that, hey, I could say, full sentences and not stutter. And that set me on a course too, because it changed my mindset as well. And I realized that, hey, there are things that can be done so that it could actually improve.
That's great, because now you are a coach. Now you speak, now you do workshops, now you host. So you have definitely found your voice.
Yes. Yes, really. It's true. That set me on a course, and it also reinforced a lot of the things that I loved, which was marketing and the arts and music and theater. I needed to be able to command the voice.
Yes.
So I needed to be able to train my voice to be able to speak, because I knew that if I wanted to do particular things, I would have to be able to kind of be in control of it. Right. So I didn't do, my parents had 1 or 2 maybe therapy sessions. Of course, at that time, it was expensive.
Yep.
And what really helped in secondary school was really doing those plays.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my 20s, I got into lecturing. I said I needed to get in front of an audience all the time.
Yes.
Be able to command my voice. I used to prepare for lectures like I would prepare for plays, and persons don't even realize that.
Yes.
I would spend hours in the beginning going over what it is I'm going to say, practicing what I'm going to say before I get to a class that was maybe an hour or too long.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of prep work in the beginning. Now I go to class. I mean, I know my material and it's not as bad. But in the beginning, I did a lot of prep on my voice and what I had to say, because I realized knowing what you were going to say was helpful to me. So I leaned on that.
What tips would you share to deal with the anxiety part of it? The nervousness that in itself, I know you've said one of the tips is definitely being prepared, knowing what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
You have any other things, any other tips?
I mean, I prepare, and that's one of the main things. About 3 years ago, I got a productivity, or maybe about 4 years ago, because I felt the pressures of work. My childhood anxiety was now actually affecting me. And one of the things she got me to do was a lot of planning and planning in my life. And she gave me a lot of breathing exercises.
Yes.
So many times I am able to recognize the anxiety. I mean, the anxiety doesn't go away. If I go to a new meeting tomorrow where I meet new colleagues, I'm anxious.
Yes.
I live in that state.
Yeah.
And so I would try to get there early. I try to sit in the vehicle. I try to breathe. I try to prep before. And I tell myself, Debbie, you've done all of this work. You know what you're going to say. It's just new faces and new people.
Yes.
So it's a work in progress, to be honest. It's not, I don't think I have a silver bullet as yet. It's just some of the things that have worked. And the productivity coach did get me to breathe, some deep breathing, walking. And I realized it calmed me a lot. And I played against that in a lot of ways. Trying to do too many things, trying to balance too many things would actually make the anxiety worse.
Yes.
So she got me much more structured. And I think for anyone who stutters, trying to remove these kind of ad hoc things would help. If you're a little more structured and you're a little more planned, then you remove the risk of something happening and you don't know how to react to it.
Yes. If you find yourself stuck, if you have a moment where you may have done the work and you're calm, but somehow you find yourself stuck, what do you do? How do you get past that? Because I know you can get stuck. I'm assuming you are trying to get the word out and it's just not coming. So what do you do?
I just stopped. I had a CEO, a Chinese businessman here in Trinidad, and for a board meeting at a time.
Yes.
Right after the board meeting, he said, Debbie, anytime you find that you're reaching to that point, he held my arm and he said, just stop.
Yes.
Just stop and gather your thought and go again. And it's true, because we're fighting ourselves. We're in the moment, the word is not coming out. You're feeling more and more anxious. You're feeling like you're under lights and people are watching you.
Yeah.
It's magnifying in your mind.
Yes.
And so he said that to me, just stop. Stop and continue. And he stuttered as well. So that was a good life lesson for me. And I try to do that. If it's too much, pause a little bit.
Yeah.
But I have defunked it as well. I mean, I put it out there. I take out this thing now.
Yes.
I let people know. And it took a little while, but about 3 or 4 years ago, I said, listen, it moved from trying to improve it to me fighting it a little bit and not accepting that this might be a part of my life for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And so I needed to stop fighting it and embrace it. And that's why I said, listen, I'm going to include it in the title and in the branding.
Yes.
Because it's a wonderful story. and I should share it. And interestingly enough, I get a lot of inquiries about it.
Yes.
Whether I'm a speech therapist, I get persons from all around the world who say, I listen to your videos, I don't hear you stuttering.
Yes. I think that what you said is so important in terms of accepting it and embracing it as part of who you are. Because a lot of times when you research stuttering, they show you the pictures of the successful quote unquote stutterers. People who have a stutter and they're super successful. They may be an actor, an actress, but you don't hear them stuttering at all. So you think, well, okay, that's where I can get to. I can fix the stuttering and sound like them because they have absolutely no issue at all. But the truth and the reality is that maybe just like you, they are preparing for these roles. They are doing short takes. They are sounding as though there's no issue. Yes. And, we're in the background thinking, well, that's the perfection that we need to get to.
That's
and
true.
That is not the case.
It is very true. It is very true. And the more I built my brand online, the more I had to be comfortable with being exposed. And that was part of it. I felt like, oh, this is too much exposure. It will invite criticism. Do I want the criticism? And I said, no. And this is only 3 or 4 years ago. I said, this is a part of who I am.
Yes.
And I have to be okay with it.
Yes.
So, and that's when I decided, hey, this is what it is. And let me use it to my advantage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions as we close, right?
Yes.
So what advice would you give to a parent of a child who stutters? And what advice would you give to someone who is suffering with some speech issue right now?
For parents of children who stutter, I think patience and encouragement. We want to be heard. And for a long time, I felt invisible and I made myself invisible.
Yeah.
But we want to be seen. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. And so at times we need to have a little more patience. As a parent, we need to continue to validate. We need to make our children know that they are more than just that. And the stutter does not define them. Right. And also, too, when you have this sort of, I think when you're under 15, certain events could feel like it's life altering.
Yes.
And then when you're 30 and 35 and 40 and 50, you look back and you say, it changed me, but I am still in control of where my life is. So I think it's important to really to continue to support, to listen, and to encourage.
Yeah.
And for anybody who does stutter, I encourage you to not shy away from the stutter. I encourage you to look for ways to improve upon it. I mean, I know persons now who are maybe in their 60s that feel so self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
That family members still to this, they will tease them.
Wow.
And they will kind of retreat, and so it can make you feel powerless. And I think as a individual, you need to feel that you're in control. And so I encourage persons to seek out ways in which they believe it will help them. I had a colleague as well too that stuttered. And people would tell him deliberately to read something in the newspaper, read it out loud, and they would joke. That was like an inside joke.
Yes,
and that would make him so self-conscious. And again, I know. I mean, he went to QRC, so it's not an academic thing.
Yes,
but to read out loud was such a stigma. So things like that to me, that challenge you as a person that stutters, I think you need to try to push past those things. You're not going to get to the next side unless you push past and you push against that resistance.
Yeah. And
that's what I did. I really, every little hurdle, I said, listen, I have to go through this. I have to get this. So don't let it throw you down. Try to push past.
Well, Debbie, thank you so very much for sharing your story. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No problem at all. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Kathy. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps others just like you to find the show. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Kathy Ann Roach, or in my Facebook group, Conversations with Kathy, where we connect live, discuss the episodes, and share tips for improving our lives. So until next time,